And okay, turn it over to you, Andrew. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew. I use he, him pronouns. And yeah, I'm actually still I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland right now because I'm a student here, but I'll be coming, I'm from Illinois originally, so I'll be coming back this summer because I'm just finishing my undergrad now. But yeah, Ravi, do you also want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ravi. I use he, him pronouns. I'm also a DSM member, and we're here today to talk about DemocratizeComEd.
Cool. I'll go ahead and share the, oh, can you enable screen sharing, please? Okay. Okay. So yeah, for those of you who are not familiar, we're part of the campaign DemocratizeComEd. And yeah, so we're here to tell you a bit more about what we do and who we are, and yeah, and hopefully at the end form a closer partnership, and even ask that we would ask 350 to support the coalition to DemocratizeComEd. Yeah, so just to start off with, yeah, so ComEd has been in the news a lot. Of course, there was the bribery scandal with Mike Madigan. Yeah, and there's also been other sort of like aldermen have also been critical of ComEd for basically ComEd has been quite shady. Evanston as well recently announced that it was leaving ComEd. So yeah, so there've been a lot of the utility of ComEd is not exactly is not perform. It is quite bad for the residents of Chicago, and we believe there's a different way possible. Yeah, and also ComEd has done stuff like this, cutting off power to black and communities, to black communities and communities of color, and have also cost the taxpayer quite a lot of money through these corruption scandals. Yeah, so we believe that this kind of is really a driving step forward for us to kind of show why the city should not continue with ComEd. Yeah, and so basically recently, Mayor Lightfoot has released requests for information to basically try to create a more accountable framework, but like to try to help consumers. But we believe that it's not enough to basically they're asking if other utilities want to fill the gap instead of ComEd, but we believe that this is not acceptable. We need democratic control of our utility. We need a public utility because that will really promote racial and environmental justice in the city, among other things, which Ravi will go into in a bit. Yeah, so our campaign is really ramping up, and we're looking for organizations to support our work. Yeah, so we're a campaign demanding that the city of Chicago buy out ComEd's assets in the city, and to create basically, we don't want just a municipal utility, but we also want democratic control. And in a bit, Ravi will go into exactly what a democratic utility would entail. Yeah, so these are kind of our main points. So yeah, so we think there should be public control of a public good. I mean, power, everyone needs power. So, we shouldn't believe that these private utility companies should be able to exploit communities. We think that the city should, or the public should own the energy production. Yeah, so energy is a human right. Everyone deserves it and should have it. We also advocate for racial justice as well, because a lot of the stuff that ComEd has done has disproportionately affected Black and Brown and minority communities. So we also, of course, connecting with 350's mission, also want to curb climate change. So one of the big things with this is we want to get the city to zero emissions, because ComEd has really not been very effective in doing this. In fact, there's like the renewable portfolio standard for Illinois is like 25% by 2025, and Illinois is really way behind that, and way behind on that. And ComEd is a big reason why they're not really promoting renewables. And then finally, we also want to root out corruption, as they're mentioning with the Mike Madigan stuff. Yeah, so this is kind of like part of a vision that we have So yeah, in 2026, we want an elected utility board. We also want zero carbon energy targets and lower rates for those who use the least power. So we don't want, we want to more equitably distribute. We basically right now, a lot of the poorer communities subsidize the wealthier ones. So we want to get rid of that. And we also want to promote jobs as well. So we want to move jobs into the renewable energy sector from the fossil fuel industry, which is similar to 350's aims. Yeah, so this is kind of just a map showing Chicago's energy burden. And basically, a household is considered energy burdened if more than 6% of its energy use is spent on energy. More than 6% of the household budget is spent on energy. And a lot of the, as you can see, a lot of the South Side and low-income communities suffer disproportionately from this. A lot of them have like household incomes of below $30,000. And in Illinois, roughly, you need to be making $41,000 or more to basically to not be energy burdened. So this is kind of what we want from a utility. We don't want the, we want to remove this and more equitably charge for electricity and make it a public good. Yeah, so now Robbie's gonna talk to you about municipalization.
Thank you, Andrew. Everyone can hear me okay? Just wanted to be sure. Cool. So yeah, so municipalization, I think before we kind of jump into it, we want to I want to talk about what our vision for municipalization kind of entails. So the start would be that Chicago would create a new utility that is owned and operated by the city of Chicago, and that is governed by an electric board, as opposed to the shareholder board that currently exists in ComEd's current operational system. This utility, the new one that we would create or help in the creation of, would buy out ComEd's existing assets, be that substations, power lines, etc., all the other infrastructure that's involved with electricity delivery, and take over delivery of electricity to Chicago customers. And Chicago made $250 million in profit in 2018, 2019. So what we would we're proposing is that those profits would be reinvested, if they were generated by this new utility, into the city of Chicago, into communities, instead of funding dividends, shareholder dividends, and lining shareholder pockets. And then, as I mentioned before, that the elected board by which the new utility would be governed, again, it's accountable to the residents of Chicago, the people that elect them in power, as opposed to shareholders. So just want me to show you the next slide whenever I need it, Andrew? Okay, cool, thank you. So yeah, municipal utilities aren't entirely unprecedented in the United States. Chicago already has a municipal water utility, and well, the exact history of the L is a little bit more complicated. They were privately run. They were privately run lines until the 30s when the city of Chicago bought them up and operated them as a municipal utility. And when it comes to energy, 1 in 7 electricity companies customers in the United States are already served by public power, be that a municipal utility in the case of Los Angeles, or rural electric cooperatives in the case of Nebraska. So the important thing to kind of think about is how we municipalize it. That really matters. Changing the system so that it works for the people and gives them the democratic control. That's the big thing, democratic control. And that's the reason why our campaign isn't called Municipalize.ComEd, it's DemocratizeComEd. Municipalization is not a panacea to all the problems that exist with ComEd, but it's a good first step. There are municipal utilities and energy co-ops that still invest in dirty energy, and there are municipal utilities and energy co-ops where resident interests are not represented properly, and decision-making, the residents and the customers are just shut out of it. So that's why we're fighting for energy democracy. Investor-owned utilities and in investor-owned utilities, profit margins and shareholder interests always take precedence. And that's not a good way to run a utility when we want to have, when we're focusing on environmental issues and we're focusing on the issues of the customers and residents of the cities that they serve. So some of that is automatic. In a municipal utility where you have a democratically elected board that's accountable to the people that voted and the residents, and increased transparency through things like open records laws, where right now we really can't find out what ComEd is doing unless we hear about it in the papers and all their wonderful scandals that they have. But starting with that, you can do even more. You can have regular public meetings in accessible language, in which customers can give inputs on rate design, infrastructure investments, sources of energy, contractors, and the finances of the utility itself. That's not to say that residents and customers would be involved in the day-to-day of the day-to-day operations of the utility, but if it's a utility that is responsible and accountable to the people, then it's their responsibility to give access to information and tools in order for customers and residents to participate in the big decisions that are involved in running a utility. Our campaign is attempting to build a mass movement to democratize ComEd, and that same mass movement would be kept in place to hold the utility accountable. And that means that you as a resident, as a customer, would have a say in the infrastructure that shapes your day-to-day existence, and that's genuinely quite exciting in my mind. So democratic control falls under, it's like the ultimate umbrella that we have in framing our demands, but we are advocating for 5 kind of specific items. So that democratically elected board, like I mentioned, that's one of them, that puts communities in control of their energy and future, and gives communities a voice and a say in how that utilities run. Electric decarbonization by 2030, that's a big part of our campaign. A democratically controlled utility means that we have the say to invest in renewable energy, energy storage methods, and energy efficiency. Progressive rates, as Andrew was mentioning before, where we have situations where low-income communities often subsidize energy usage in high-income communities, especially when there's a lot of pressure on the grid as a result of that energy usage. And being Chicago, when we talk about, or under the framing of racial capitalism, when we talk about differences in class, it often is involved with differences in race. There is a vast disparity between median household income between white and Black and Latinx communities in this city, and that often translates into, as I said, it tracks with racial disparities, and it ends up being that the Black and brown communities of this city are the ones that are ultimately facing the highest burden. And speaking about low-income communities, we want to expand affordability within the new utility. After rent, utilities are usually the second largest household expense, which means that if we want to frame it in a certain way, that means that utilities are an affordable housing issue. No one should have to choose between groceries and paying utilities each month. And finally, we have to, as a socialist campaign, we have to always keep labor at the forefront, or as an important part of anything that we kind of talk about. So we would definitely be rehiring workers into this new utility in parallel positions, honor any existing IBEW contracts and extend those perks of those contracts to new employees, and prioritize labor in all aspects of decision making. Whenever we have an outside contract, we want to work with union shops that have good records in order to, again, emphasize that labor aspect. So why are we fighting now? The contract that the city of Chicago had with ComEd expired in December 2020. So there currently is not a contract. It was signed in 1992, that was before I was born, and it was the second such agreement in 72 years of ComEd's relationship with the city. So it's a once in a generation opportunity to rethink how Chicagoans access this essential resource and move beyond fundamentally extractive shareholder investor owned utility models. If you want to combat climate change, we have to do that in a bold and efficient, and we have to act kind of quickly, and that's not going to happen unless we have control over that power. But we also need to keep in mind that we need to do it in a way that's just and equitable to all of the the residents of Chicago and to the communities that are often hit hardest by climate change. We can't afford 30 more years of this status quo. So I think the next slide is just a slide about our general membership. Oh, no, okay. Well, I can talk about the membership meeting later. So the idea of reinvesting ComEd's profits into Chicago, expanding access to essential resources, and strengthening democratic oversight align with the goals of building a city that works for the many. And we're fighting to democratize ComEd for the same reason that we're fighting for Medicare for all, rent control, and access to public education. One of the principles of the Socialist Green New Deal states the above: the future is a public good, not a private luxury. And that's something that we keep in mind as part of our campaign. And I think it's a good kind of driving force to think about when we think about how we build a more equitable kind of future in society for generations to come. So if the next, okay, well, I'm just gonna plug, we have our membership meeting on May 5th at, I think it's at 7:30. I can confirm that. But you don't have to be a member of the campaign. We love seeing new faces, but there's always new faces there. If you want to learn more, if you want to find out more what the working groups are doing, what kind of exciting things that we're working on right now, please stop by. And if you have any questions, obviously, we have our website, demcomed.org. Email us at our Gmail. Add us on Twitter. We're pretty active there, and on Facebook as well. So. If there's anything else that you want to add, Andrew, if there's another slide that's going to surprise me here next, I don't know.
No, I think those because I think those slides were from the old sure. Membership, like old dates. So no, no, we're not presenting those. But yeah, we do have a membership meeting. Soon, like Ravi said, on the should be the first. Is on Wednesday, right? The first Wednesday of the month usually.
Yes, so that would be May, and it's usually around 7 or.
And do you know, are those going to be like, is it going to continue being online, or are they going to switch to being in person? Do you know?
Yeah, so we were talking about that at our last organizing committee meeting. We're going to try and move to kind of more of a hybrid format where we want to try and get have public physical meetings while still having the opportunity for those individuals who don't necessarily want to be in the physical space yet. We tried those out actually before the pandemic a little bit, and they tended to work out pretty well. So we're going to try and bring that back so that, as I said, any individual that wants to come to these meetings can come, whether they come physically or virtually.
Cool. I wrote down a bunch of questions that I have, but before I monopolize your time, maybe I'll check in with Hannah, Dan, or Frank. Did you have anything you wanted to ask?
I guess this is kind of a dumb question, but do you know if ComEd is the biggest or the only supplier of electricity for the Chicagoland area?
So there are a couple of smaller utilities that operate within the Chicagoland area. ComEd is the primary one, and in essence, it is the utility provider for the city, for the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, so but like it is the whole Chicago, like so DemocratizeComEd would buy out the assets just in the city, so it would sever ComEd from the surrounding, because like ComEd covers the entire Chicagoland area. Yeah, but like there are some smaller utilities, like Ravi said, but it would sever that from so it would sever Chicago from that and just have a municipal utility in the city of Chicago.
Cool. Okay, I think I'll jump into my questions. I wrote down a bunch. Guys, I'm really interested in this. So I totally feel like I'm on board. I just have some more questions about like how things work. So one question I had was, you had mentioned that lower income communities are subsidizing basically for, wealthier communities. And how is that exactly? Is it because we have this like rate fluctuation so that when more energy is being used, like it costs everyone more money, even though you might not be using more?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, cool. And then for the assets, so the idea is that Chicago would just own the assets within its borders?
that's the current proposition as we're going about it so far. So since we're focusing on the city of Chicago as part of the campaign, that's what we're fighting for. Again, it's kind of more in that direction of that we ultimately don't want privately owned utilities. And because we're focusing on the city of Chicago right now, that's what the current goal of the campaign is. They're just speaking to some other people in the campaign, we obviously had talked about, situations where like we don't want like a patchwork of individual private utilities like in the Chicagoland area. I mean, the ultimate goal is that kind of energy democracy, but as the campaign currently exists, that it is just focused on the city of Chicago.
Okay. And because I don't fully understand like how all the infrastructure works, but is there any concerns with like would we be connected to power generating stations like within our borders? And if not, is there any risk that we own some of the assets, but not all the way to the source connection? Or I think the idea might too be have more like community solar and more local production as well. Does my question make sense?
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if my question made sense because I don't fully understand the whole infrastructure piece.
No, absolutely, yeah. The whole infrastructure thing is, I mean, I have to admit, it is quite confusing. We actually are in, oh my goodness, what is it called? We're in a energy, like an energy region that also services like Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So ultimately, the power generation stations are run and operated by Exelon, which is ComEd's parent company, and that's where they get their energy. They get their energy from the nuclear stations that are located in Western Illinois, and then they also purchase electricity from other locations. So as far as power generation stations, that's a question that I might want to get back to you just after speaking to a couple people. But ultimately, in the situation where we would be able to decide where we get to buy our electricity from, that I think I don't want to say trumps because that's not the right word, but it kind of like supersedes the idea of like we might have power generating stations and we would want to divest those. We would not want to continue getting electricity from dirty sources of energy, where we would be able to purchase energy from places and from power generating stations that align with the goals of a like a green utility and a green utility.
It's also my understanding, I think, that we'd buy out like the power lines and like other assets, like those kind of assets as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. So if like we own the transmission, and I know ComEd doesn't necessarily own all of the generation either, because that's, you can pick who is generating your energy. So that's how you can get renewable energy, theoretically. But yeah, I was just wondering like, yeah, if there could be any like nefariousness behind like Exelon being like, you're not really fully connected, like you're connected to a part of other transmission, but not to the actual like generation. Yeah, but it might just because I'm not understanding it correctly or articulating it very well, but.
No, it's a pretty wonky kind of portion of our like monthly one-on-one sessions, and I have to admit that it's definitely one thing that even I don't fully understand, unfortunately. But it's a complicated issue. There's individuals on the campaign that definitely know a lot more about that particular focus of it. So yeah, I mean, if you want to reach out to DemComEd at our Gmail, yeah. Matthew, he's the one of the campaign leads. He is a very wonky type of person that kind of loves this kind of stuff. So he'd definitely be able to explain it to you. Otherwise, we can reach out to you as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate that. So for the democratically elected board, is that something that would just happen during like regular elections?
That would be up to the debate. The primary goal is getting that board in place, and then obviously how the elections would take place would kind of follow it. I would assume that as a result of having that be part of like a municipal, since it would be a municipal utility, would fall in line with other municipal elections. So that would obviously have to be hashed out with the city and the elections board and everything, but ideally we'd want it at the same time as elections in order to make sure that we have people turning out to vote and making sure that residents are being active in the democratic process.
Okay. I just have two more questions. Sorry, I have a lot. I find this so interesting. So another question is like, so the city hasn't re-signed a contract, and I know we're trying to move to this. So where are you at with the city? Are they interested in this?
We have had, we have at least 5 aldermen that are very much in favor. We have a short list of aldermen that signed. So there was a feasibility study that was released, not really, it was commissioned and released by the city of Chicago. And we had a decent chunk of aldermen that signed on to at least get the feasibility study. We had a majority of aldermen sign on to get the feasibility study done. So there's at least some interest on the city level in that regard. I know that there was the request for information that came out recently from the mayor's office for additional utilities to, if they have any interest in the operations. So the city itself obviously is not totally on board with ComEd. As far as the municipalization aspect, as I said, we have aldermen that are interested in it. The mayor's office tends to not like much change, unfortunately. So it's a little harder to push her, but we have been talking with individuals that are associated with the executive in the city of Chicago, and at least partially being at the table, either through our alderman, Daniel Espada, who's the main driving force behind this kind of proposal. And then I think Matthew and Rory sat down with somebody else from the mayor's office a couple weeks ago in order to just kind of discuss things.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good news. Yeah, we can well, I'll talk with the 350 group, but I'd like to promote it when we meet with aldermen as well. I think, part of a whole agenda for getting to be, taking action on climate change. My last question is, are there any pitfalls with this? And I just ask because when we did our CEJA forum and we had Jen Walling from the Illinois Environmental Council as one of our panelists, she was just airing some caution about she had seen municipalization in other places that ended up being corrupt as well. And I think, there's always the room for corruption, even in democracy, as we know with our current democracy. So just wondering if there's any what potential pitfalls could be, and then any corrections in there to kind of make up for any potential pitfalls.
Well, so it would have, I think the easiest way for me to start with that would be to say that it would be a matter of how we set up that democratically elected board and what kind of powers we give them in order to remove individuals within the organization that engage in corrupt business practices and other practices. I mean, as far as any municipal run system would go, I mean, we're obviously going to have some pitfalls along the way. As far as other specifics, I'm trying to think. The other thing that I could think of would be that the actual cost of acquiring the assets might be one of the kind of big talking points and kind of a big thing. The number varies. ComEd was just kind of throwing out numbers everywhere, and the number that we eventually came through the Reach report that we released is it a week ago now? About a week ago. I believe that number was around 6 billion, whereas ComEd was throwing numbers out anywhere between 5 and 10 as they pleased. So I could see that being another thing that would, I suppose, fall under your definition of a pitfall. As far as the corruption argument goes, that's, like I said, it's something that would have to be hashed out as far as, how we actually end up setting up that organizational structure and what kind of powers we give the democratically elected board to do. That's why we don't want it to be an appointed board. We want it so that if there is corruption and there are bad things going on, we can get those people out of power and replace them.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you guys had mentioned about transparency and, you know, oversight. So those are also things I think that could help. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, those are all the questions I had. Thanks for answering all of them.
All right. If I can jump in, I got a quick question, kind of in the similar vein to what we were just talking about. You know, I understand maybe the focus on the city of Chicago because they're so big. You know, they theoretically would be best positioned to handle, you know, managing an electric utility. Like you said, they do our water service and everything else. But as like a kind of counterpoint to it and a potential pitfall, maybe, you know, do you feel like the city of Chicago taking control of our own electric utility, even in like a perfect world where that goes well, and you know, the city's able to successfully you know, find energy providers that, you know, are relatively at the same level in terms of cost and are also, you know, focused on renewables. You know, that we do have democratic control, that our city department is as good or better at service than ComEd currently is, which that's a low bar. With all that said, you know, that's kind of, Chicago has now, like, we've kind of figured things out and we're doing great, but then everyone else in the greater Chicagoland area that's still covered in the ComEd service territory, like, is it, you know, kind of every municipality you'd kind of step by step and go on its own? Like, for instance, maybe Evanston's an example. I don't know what their plans are going forward. Any kind of like looking forward at how that future might play out? Any insight you might have there?
So yeah, I can address that a bit. So Evanston's contract with ComEd is actually a little different than the franchise agreement that the city of Chicago has. As far as expanding, I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, we have a situation where like the entire state of Illinois is run under a kind of like a energy cooperative like they have in Nebraska. Obviously, there's obviously going to be a couple of issues with that as far as size and population, but at the same time, we don't want that kind of like, we don't want like little municipal utilities everywhere, because that kind of defeats the purpose of the ultimate goal. We have groups that are working on a kind of a similar energy campaign in, I believe, Oak Park. So down the line, it could very much be a possibility where we could open it up where that there'd be other municipalities joining a municipal utility that's run by the city of Chicago. But at that point, we would want to move away from it kind of being like a Chicago utility and more of like a general municipal utility for Illinois. But that's obviously something that's down the line. It's a goal that I don't want to say I haven't put too much thought into, but it's definitely not a primary goal to think about at this point, when the primary goal is basically just, hey, we actually want to not be with like ComEd anymore. But it's definitely a good point, and I can take that to the campaign leaders, ask them what their opinions on that are, if they have any additional information to pass on to you, and I can definitely do that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think for me, it kind of boils down to like, is municipalization like the best first step, or maybe there's some way to negotiate a new franchise agreement that, like, is there a way to take a significant step that could be a model for like other municipalities to follow, that like maybe the state would model itself on that? Or is, you know, the city going its own way, becoming a great municipal provider on its own, is that setting an example that like other cities and states follow? I guess that's kind of the question there on strategically which of those two paths, and why you guys feel the municipalization route is the best first step. But I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I as a mission statement, DemocratizeComEd is like a fantastic, like, I'm fundamentally with you guys 100%. So I appreciate you guys being here and working on it.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, but please, you know, any questions that any of you have, send them our way, and we'll talk about it in our organizing meeting, and we can get you answers that to any questions that you have. This is obviously like a collective effort. We have many different organizations that are in as part of the coalition, and we want to make sure that everyone's questions are answered, everyone's kind of concerns are addressed, and you know, to make sure that it's that mass movement, right? So we don't want conflicting ideas. We don't want any hesitancy from anybody. So yeah, no, definitely. Any other questions, you know, we'll definitely pass those up the line to people that might know a little bit more.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. I think that's all the questions I have for now. I don't know. We seem to have lost our host.
I think she just came back. She's connecting.
I guess in the meantime, I probably missed a little bit of this because I was like, but what's the kind of vote, or does it kind of culminate in a vote or a city ordinance to kind of like transfer ownership, or is it like envision sort of a buyout? What would it look like to democratize it from the city, so to speak?
So if I understand it correctly, municipalization can be achieved with a simple majority vote in city council.
Yeah.
After which the
like a resolution or an ordinance?
I believe it's a oh, actually, I'm not sure.
Because I think, I guess it might be an ordinance. The way I'm thinking about it is like you can draft a resolution, but there's like no teeth behind it. It's like a nudge in that direction, but like an ordinance requires like action. So
okay, so yeah, it must be an ordinance. I know, yeah. And that would begin the process of the city starting to acquire the assets, buying out, and that's a whole different ballgame of actually negotiating with ComEd as far as pricing for assets and the actual transfer of the actual infrastructure.
Okay, and I'm assuming this democratization process hopefully will roll across other municipalities or governments, right? And so they'll each have to adopt their own model based off of how they adopt their, like, based on how they do things. So that's pretty cool though. That's pretty exciting. Let us know how we can kind of support you guys. Hannah and myself are part of the newsletter team. So we send out like bi-weekly newsletters and to kind of like let our community and listserv know of like any issues. So if it helps, like we could drop our contact information and potentially coordinate to promote this. Just let us know.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, sorry, I'm back. My computer just like shut off, but I'm back. So I was thinking too, we have a meeting with Alderman Cardenas' office on the 6th. So I'm wondering too, if like maybe as 350, whenever we have a meeting with an alderperson, we can just start to ask where they are on these other issues, because, you know, we are part of the Ready for 100 collective. I think, you know, the few of us on here support this. So we're actually meaning to talk with him because he introduced a resolution to get the pension funds divest from fossil fuels, which is great, but it went to the Rules Committee. And so we heard that's where legislation goes to die. So we're meeting with him to kind of see what the strategy is for how we can get it out of the Rules Committee. But then I think at the end of the meeting, you know, I can, if you guys are open to it, just kind of ask where he stands on this.
Or no. Cardenas is, I mean, I think we have an idea as to where he stands. I mean, I don't think he's particularly in favor of it. He hasn't been entirely, I don't want to say entirely supportive. I know that at the couple of city council meetings that I've been able to attend and give comments at, I'd say it kind of leans more towards apathy as far as like actual support for this, but there are definitely other members of the environmental subcommittee that are on board. But yeah, you said if we have any particular questions that we wanted to ask Cardenas that we should provide you, is that what the?
If you want to, yeah. Okay. Or I was just thinking we could say like, you know, at 350, we're on board with this campaign. Just or we could even just say like, this is important to us too. I think maybe if they find out more people care about it, I don't know if that's influential, but.
No, yeah, and it absolutely would be. And I know that there's a change in dynamic with the mayor's announcement yesterday with the request for information for additional utilities. So I could definitely see some people's tune on this kind of changing a little bit from like, oh, we have to re-sign this franchise agreement to, okay, I guess we're open to new ideas as, you know, part of what the mayor is saying. So, you know, Cardenas might be thinking differently already.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we'll just let them know that this is
Sure.
important and we're interested in it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm curious, could some of these goals be placed into a franchise agreement with ComEd, like realistically? Like, for instance, like renewable energy targets are part of it commonly, right? Like a certain percentage of the energy provided to the city is from renewable sources. I don't know if progressive, like a rate structure would have to be like, isn't that set at the state level, or does each franchise agreement influence rates? Maybe I missed.
I believe each, yeah, so I think each agreement has some impact on rate structure, but as far as addressing what could be put into a new franchise agreement, that's obvious. That's something that very much that we're speaking to Alderman Laspada about, and kind of involved with the process about. You know, we don't want a 30-year franchise agreement. We are like right now. I think in the last talk that we had with Laspada, it sounded like the city was looking at somewhere between 5 or less. And with the news that came out yesterday, apparently they're even open to like not doing one with ComEd. But I believe the rate structure, it comes from, that must be, that has to be a combination of a state level and a local level thing, because I know that there's the
Citizens Utility Board.
Yes, thank you. I know that they definitely have a big say in as far as what kind of rates and what kind of pricing that utilities can offer customers. And we would obviously be able to negotiate with them directly in the event of kind of a more municipal situation to see what we can do with progressive rates and rate structures as a whole.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So not to negotiate away from the goal of like a democratized entity that actually controls energy, which is kind of the ideal. I imagine if you're dealing with an alderman who doesn't seem as open to that as being realistic, maybe we could at least reiterate the point of, we want to decarbonize where we get our energy from. So any contracts we have with any power providers should have like those kind of goals in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Yeah, as well as economic justice with like progressive rate structures where possible. Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously we don't. The end goal would not be to a new franchise agreement would be disappointing, but we obviously have to keep it in the back of our mind, right? Like the ultimate victory might not be achievable, but if we can get some victories along the way, then we obviously want to make sure that we can get them, and be sure that kind of the core goals, those five umbrella goals, because we kind of have seeing what portion of that we can try and get into a new franchise agreement, where like even if we have to do a new one, even if we're going back to ComEd, we can get something out of it.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Andrew and Robbie. This was amazing. Like, I learned so much. I've been so curious on this topic. So I appreciate you sharing and fielding all of our questions. And we'll post the recording on our website so that other people can watch. I know there was more interest for people who couldn't be here today. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And as I said, reach out to the Gmail and we'll get back to you with any other questions that you have. I wrote down a couple of yours, and I'll pass those along to Matthew and Rory to see if we can get some answers for you there. But otherwise, yeah, we're always available to answer any questions that you have. And if anyone wants to come to the general meeting, we can let you know that as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we wrap up today, just wanted to make a quick announcement that next month, the first Saturday in June, we will have Dean from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. He's going to share about how they're looking at climate change in the city with regards to the work that they do. And that will actually be our last monthly meeting. We've been doing this for years now, but we found that attendance has been dwindling, unfortunately. So after June, we're kind of going to take a step back and revamp, see what we can do to kind of boost attendance. So maybe I think we'll take July and August off, and then maybe it's going back to in-person in September, or finding a different format, maybe a different day of the week. But yeah, so June will be our last monthly meeting, and then we will kind of relaunch these in a new format in the fall. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming today. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, our email address is info@350chicago.org. Just dropped in the chat. So feel free, if you want more information on 350 or how to get involved, feel free to reach out to me, Melissa, at info@350chicago.org. So I think that concludes for today. So thank you.